Tuesday, June 12th, 2018 meeting of the Woodbridge Traffic Authority and Board of Police Commissioners. It is now 7:04. I'm opening with Woodbridge Traffic Authority. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to be heard? Is there any correspondence that we have to address?
There is none.
Chief, there are two traffic matters.
The first one is we received a request from the Woodbridge Recreation Department to hold the annual, 37th annual actually, Woodbridge Road Race. It'll be Saturday, October 6th. It's the usual route that they've been going for the last almost 4 decades now. As usual, it's they plan on having it always, like it always is, well-staffed, highly visible with signs and conage. And the PD will assist at key intersections. So with the approval of the traffic authority, that'll enable them to go forward and apply for a state highway DOT permit. So seeking traffic authority's approval.
Is there any reason why we should not approve this?
No, we've done it for many years and no problems.
Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
And the second item is just an update. At last month's meeting, we discussed a request from a resident regarding possible installation of a 3-way stop sign at the intersection of Rimmon and Sonia Roads. As I told you I would do, we had a preliminary traffic study conducted by Sergeant Rizzuti. He found there were a total of 13 accidents in that area from January 2015 to May 2018, but only 2 of them were really related directly to the intersection. The other ones were deer strikes and people driving off the road and through the stop sign. One involved a minor injury, but it is kind of a different kind of a T intersection with a curve. So he reached out to the Connecticut UConn's Technology Transfer Center for some advice and help with that. And after speaking with them, it's based on the findings of his study and coupled with the fact that it's an intersection of 2 state highways, so they would really have the jurisdiction of what's done there. We recommend that we send a letter to the state DOT and request that they do a study of the intersection to see if there's any modifications they could do possibly with the signage and things like that. So if you're okay with that, we'll send out a letter. I'm sorry?
Stop sign, not a stoplight. There is a stop
There
sign.
is a stop sign.
So there is a stoplight.
Well, that'll be up for them to look at, see what they decide, because it's 2 state roads.
It's a little crazy in the mornings, it
It
does
is,
get a little
yeah.
rough, but
So your board's good with sending a letter to them for the
Yes.
traffic study? And that's all for traffic.
Motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor? Welcome to the Board of Police Commissioners. It is 6:07. First item is approval of the minutes from May 8th of 2018. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Unanimous. Public comments. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to be heard? Is there any correspondence? Okay. Financial.
Financial report. We're in the final month of this fiscal year, so as of the 4th of June, looks like we're at about 80% of the budget used. So despite everything that's been going on, we're still somewhat on track, still on target. We're slightly under. I guess after 11 months, that'd be like 90% used. We're at 88%, so we're good. Hopefully the next few weeks won't be nothing serious will happen that'll give us a significant impact from where we are now.
mustard.
The big one there, the police officer overtime for the last couple pay periods that we had since our last meeting. A little help that we'll have is that one of our officers that was in the field training process has just finished, so we'll be able to pick up a slot there. We had the Amity referendum, we had to cover the polls for the day. In the middle of May, we had
How many officers were used that day? Do you remember?
1 officer, but for 14 hours from 6 in the morning till 8 in the evening. Just one.
So there was no way to have 2 officers? an 8-hour shift and a 6-hour shift, or 2 8-hour shifts?
No, because
No.
the pay is all the same, so it doesn't, because it's
Yeah.
They could split it up if they like, but it was, I think it was just one officer, but it was a total of, it was just total of that one day. And we had the wires, wires down, the public hazards, and the make safe crews in town that we had to cover during the windstorm. And we put out some extra patrols, because we've been having a lot of the thefts from the vehicles, as you probably saw the news reports in the town website. And the other thing we had, we participated again in the highway safety grant coverage over the Memorial Day weekend, so that was for four days. But 100% of that would be reimbursed back to the town, and go back into the overtime budget when it's received. And that's all I have to, on the financial side.
Any questions?
Just an observation, when I looked at these numbers, and when I used to do budgets, or I looked at, just from experience, I used to look at, in the last quarter or the last couple months, looking at each item, or each line item, and looking to see how well, or how, I shouldn't say how well, how close to being at budget you were. And if you take the amount of line items, and some are more important than others. I mean, you have, if you're over budget on a $500 line item, it's not as much if you're $30,000 over on a $100,000 budget. I mean, the numbers are drastically different, so they're skewed. That's what I'm trying to say. But if you look at each line item, especially going into the last month, you're only 11/12ths of the way through, and you are, if you look at all your line items, except for the salaried positions, the majority of your line items are not going to be within the budget. The majority of them. If you go down the list and you look at each line item, I'm just telling you, I mean, if you look at the number of items.
But can I just say something?
Sure, go ahead.
We addressed that last time, and everything seemed attributable, call it disasters, and that everything requires overtime clerical, overtime police, overtime dispatchers, overtime. So everything seems, from meeting supplies to data, medical, everything. I mean, is there anything different from that?
No, it was the same as it's been. I mean,
I mean, but if you go down the list, I mean, college incentive, you're 106% with a month left. I mean, I'm just looking at items. I'm looking at the overall budget. I'm not picking on that particular item. I'm just looking at the amount of line items that you have. And if I think you're gonna see that you're more than 50% over budget on each line, collectively on line items. Something you might want to just consider.
How is the shortfall made up?
the shortfall's made up sometimes because it's transferred from different lines that might be under, so say like in the,
But if overall it's over.
if which one?
The whole budget.
Oh, if the whole budget, if we went over at the end?
Yeah.
Then,
So we work with the town?
Yeah, we work with it,
Everything's
yeah.
been run through Tony,
yes,
right?
Tony will make whatever
So all
adjustments.
this-
Yeah, if it went over and
Yeah.
he didn't have any money that he could move around in different ways, he would have to dip into contingency, and that's for the unanticipated things that happen that are significant, such as the homicide thing. So we don't budget for something of that magnitude.
We've never been,
Yeah, no.
we've never been over budget.
And Steve, just
Not in the
using
18 years I've been here.
Yeah,
using your college incentive as an example, I says usually Tony actually cuts that. I would probably say that we probably asked for more than that when we computed it, based on officers that we didn't have at that time. And he comes back with a figure of officers we have at the time. And we just hired 2 officers that both have college. That were-
right. No, I just
that we
happen to
didn't
pick
consider
that item.
during
I
our
mean, you could
budget
look at,
process.
I mean, as I said, I mean, medical expense, right? It's 165. But it's a small number. It's $1,000. So it's, you're $600 over on a $3 million budget. It's not as significant. I'm just saying, but if you look at each line item, and you're over budget, it's something you should consider. Either we're not budgeting properly, we're not getting the right amount on the sheet from the beginning, or the town isn't recognizing the appropriate line item from an expense side.
I think it's impossible for town to expect a homicide and tornadoes and all the disasters.
I'm not certainly debating that, so. I mean, that was an anomaly and it was catastrophic, so, especially to your budget. So. I mean, if you look at obviously that's why the overtime for investigation is, right? It's got to be, you're 500% over. You still have a month left, right? And obviously
Officer
that's
salary is
because
going to have about $78,000 in good,
no, I'm just saying, but you're looking at that line item, and that's obviously because of the
shortages.
because of the homicide, which I'm sure that affects other items in the budget also, right? Kind
It's
of
like a ripple.
effect. Yeah, it's a ripple
Plus
effect.
that breakdown.
So,
Any other questions? No?
That's all for financial.
Activity. Drug arrest, we had one, it was just insignificant over at the high school. There was electronic cigarettes that we had one of those last month too. DWIs, we had one DWI who was associated with a motor vehicle stop by Officer Capazzo. Just a note that, the operator blew .119 and a .117, which is legally quite a bit over the limit. Larcenies, we had 8 for the month. These larcenies are not associated with the entering the vehicles at night. I'll go over that as well. But we had 8. One was on Litchfield Turnpike. It was down at the gas station. It was lost money. It was actually recovered through the investigation. On Amity Road, we had money stolen out of a purse. We had theft from a motor vehicle on Shepherd Road. Vernon Court, we had a scooter stolen. Soundview, we had some items stolen out of a shed. And then at Fairview, we had a theft of a gas can. Larcenies from motor vehicles, we had 22 this month. Those are the vehicles that residents are leaving open. None of those 22 larcenies entering the vehicles were no break-ins. They were all entered by vehicles that were left unlocked.
At people's homes or?
And we put out on our Facebook page, the paper, everywhere. I mean, the bottom line is that people are not locking their cars. They're not taking the advice from the police departments. And there's not a lot that we can do to combat it.
I heard a rumor that I don't remember where I heard this, that because of changes in housing in New Haven, there's a rash of these kind of burglaries in suburban towns like this, that they've closed some of the housing units near the train station. You didn't hear anything like this, and it was, as soon as
That information usually would have come up, actually, Sergeant Capiello went to a detective meeting this morning.
Yeah.
And one of the comments is basically there's not a lot that the police departments can do other than maybe a little extra patrol, because the people are not locking the cars at night.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
It just seemed to be an interesting bit of
driveway, you lock
sociology.
it.
They may have closed something, and then apparently there were roving gangs. One car would come and drop off a cluster of
Right,
kids.
that's exactly what's
Exactly.
And they
happening here
would,
too.
that's the thing. So
Yep.
that-
Exactly.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have video.
No, I mean that's happening here from this closing of the New Haven project, so that's what I was told.
Yeah, it could be. It seems like it's
Yeah.
New Haven and Waterbury.
It makes sense.
Juveniles, all
Yeah,
juveniles.
yeah, it's kids.
But the bottom line, they're not breaking into the car.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to combat. Motor vehicle stolen. We had an ATV out of North Racebrook Road. We had a vehicle stolen on Peck Hill Road. Keys left in the vehicle. We had a Jaguar stolen out of the Crest Lincoln back on the 18th of the month.
Were those
It was
keys in
recovered in
it?
Bridgeport.
No, that was,
They actually broke into the building, took the keys, and then went out and got in the car. Because a lot of the Jaguars down there, they've got sensors in them. So unless you have the key in the fob, you can start the car and I think it won't go over 30 miles an hour. It's pretty interesting, sophisticated. And then we actually it was a recovered motor vehicle, one of the four, that was stolen on a derby, and it was left in a driveway on Rimmon Road. Well, you know, the occupant of the resident woke up in the morning and looked out and said, "That car doesn't belong to me." And they found out it was stolen out of Derby. Just some miscellaneous is that we had 30 motor vehicle accidents during the month, 3 with injury, 23 with non-injury, and 4 unknown. Domestic disputes, we had 3. One was a significant one. I won't get into it, but it was associated with an unlawful restraint, disorderly violation of protective order, and a breach of pre-second. And the reason I bring it up is that the officers worked very well that night to make this not a major incident. This is a type of incident that could have really blown out of proportion. And both the chief and I were contacted that night, and through the good efforts of the officers that were on the scene. Commendable that they didn't accelerate it into a situation where we ended up with the SWAT team or something like that. So it was just a good job, well done.
But aren't they specifically trained in not escalating situations?
Well, that's what it did. They used their training to not becoming to a point where the individual. I can get into it in an executive session, but it was just a good job. With the lieutenant not here tonight, I'm just going to go into motor vehicle activity a little bit. I told you about the DWI. We did have DWI patrols during the month, during the holiday season. It's part of a grant that we have Sergeant Bloom and Sergeant Rizzuti that are doing all the documentation on this particular grant, but the grant is 100% reimbursable. It's just that we have to pay out and then we get reimbursed, but they're going to do all the documentation as far as notifying the state what kind of activity we have. If you look at the month of April and the month of May, it's almost doubled. During the month of April, we had 107 motor vehicle stops. During the month of May, we had 220. So they're out there doing a good job. Like the chief said, we're going to have some extra patrols due to the thefts in the vehicles. We have been hiring a little bit when the shifts have been short. After graduation, the SRO will assume patrol responsibility, so we'll have an extra officer on patrol. But also note that he's going to take most of his vacation during the summer period as well, because he can't take it during the school season. And I just want to note that the SRO was instrumental with giving information to the detectives regarding the ATV that I told you was stolen out of Racebrook Road. He had interviewed one of the students, and his information resulted in the detectives subsequently recovering that motor vehicle. And again, like the chief said, if you look at the activity, public hazards, we had a significant amount higher than the previous month due to the storm. That's basically the activity. Do you have any questions? And if there's anything in the future that you want me to look into, I'm just kind of taking highlights.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Both reports.
Is there a motion to approve both the financial report and activity reports?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
You're all
Chief Schwartz.
Yes.
On May 21st, first responders from the greater New Haven area, 2 of them who are here this evening with us, were recognized at an EMS Services Awards ceremony pertaining to cardiac arrest saves. It was held at the sponsor hospital, the New Haven Hospital Center for EMS, and it included an awards ceremony, a luncheon, and a chance for some survivors to meet the first responders that assisted them. Recognized at that event from our department were Officer Modine, Mark Modine, Officer John Calabrese, who's not here this evening, Dispatcher Sean Vallon, and Dispatcher Donna Carr, who's here. The case that happened in town here involved a 54-year-old town resident who went into cardiac arrest. dispatcher car was one of the dispatchers working that took care of the EMS and pre-arrival instructions. And then the prompt response by Officer Modine and Officer Calabrese and the medic and others. They're able to get CPR started, and the ambulance arrived, and ultimately the patient survived, and he was at the ceremony actually to speak with them too. So they all received a unit citation from the sponsor hospital for the job they did, and they should be recognized for a job well done.
Congratulations.
Great.
An update on the carport. Last month, the town awarded the bid for the carport project. So to get started, the bid was awarded to a company called the Total Group Construction Company. They're out of North Branford. The final paperwork is being finalized contractually between the town, the project manager, and the architect. It's just about done now, and the project should anticipate to get started in the near future. So hopefully we'll start seeing some progress on that. Coming up in another week or so, a couple weeks, on June 20th from 8 to noon, here at the police department, we'll be participating in the annual Governor's Emergency Planning and Preparedness Initiative. It's an annual statewide exercise that we host here at the PD, right in this room here, where various department heads convene and we collaborate as a unified command, with the overall goal of the exercise is to prepare the town in the continuity of town operations in the event of an emergency that may occur. This year's statewide exercise coordinated with a national level exercise that will be going on at the same time. So that'll be on Wednesday the 20th from 8 to noon. Last month, Beecher Road School held its DARE graduation on May 18th at the school. Selectman Crisco was present and spoke and addressed the students and the families, and Chairman Burke was also there. His son graduated from that.
Congrats.
So congratulations to him, and congratulations to Officer Lynch for completion of another successful year. And then, as you know, with our new agreement, he'll be staying at the school throughout the summer to provide his services for Woodbridge Rec and the summer camp enrichment program. And then, as far as graduations go, this Friday, the 15th at 4 p.m., the Amity High School graduation is taking place. The weather looks like it's going to be nice like today, so it's going to again be held outdoors at the football field. And we anticipate the usual, short periods of traffic congestion, but with the same staffing that we've had, and we should be good to go. I spoke to Principal Mann just a few hours ago too, and everything's all coordinated, so we're good with that. Last month, and maybe the last couple of months, I had reported to you about this regional mutual aid agreement that we've been working on. Myself and the chiefs from the neighboring towns of Orange, Seymour, Ansonia, and Derby work together in getting the agreement finalized to allow the 5 departments to work more closely together and to share resources. The question came up, I think, as it pertains to the interaction between our agencies with the different GAs. And I spoke to our prosecutor in the state's attorney's office back in April, and he said that it's not a problem. It's be considered mutual aid related. It would all be covered by statute. The town attorney reviewed the agreement, and the first selectman presented to the Board of Selectmen after our last meeting, so that was on May 9th, and they approved it, and Beth signed off on it. Since the signing, we held joint active shooter response training exercises with all 5 departments, so it was good. Everyone to get it done before July, and we actually held one here at the Amity High School, and then one was done. We sent guys to the Ansonia High School, Derby High School, and Seymour High School, so everybody was on board with that. So it's off to a good start.
When was that training held, Chief?
I'm sorry?
When was that training held?
It was held, I don't have the exact dates, but it was during the last month.
Twice a week they do it.
Yeah.
Oh, they do it that frequently?
Well, no, just so we could get it all done. They want to hit all 5.
I see.
Well, actually, only 4 towns, because we didn't do any of the schools in Orange, but 5 departments in four different communities. We received a streetlight request, our first one back in September of 2017. You might remember we adopted the streetlight application process. And so we got the first one, and it was from a resident who resides on Raymond Street. And he wanted a streetlight near the corner of Raymond and Luciani Street installed by the town. And the reason he gave, he put, was for, due to what he quotes in his application, were a lot of crime and break-in of cars, etc. The application process pretty much states that the purpose of the streetlights is to increase traffic and pedestrian safety along public ways and to reduce accidents by eliminating intersections. It also says that it could be installed by the town to illuminate public property for safety reasons, and the town does not install streetlights for private property. That's the responsibility of the homeowner. So I went back and I researched our call history for the last 2 years in that area there to see if there's anything that would be of relevance to support their request. On Raymond Street, we had, in 2016, we had one theft from a parked car overnight. And in January, 2 occasions in January of 2018, we had an incident where somebody went into a shed and moved some stuff around but didn't take anything. And the house next door to that had, also in January 2018, had a burglary. On Luciani Street, over the past 2 years, there were 3 thefts from cars, 1 stolen vehicle. And just as far as motor vehicle accidents go, there was just one minor motor vehicle accident in that 2-year period, so that wasn't a problem. Part of the process is to discuss it with the Public Works Director, see if he has any feelings. If it was, that's more if it was a physical barrier or something like that. So I discussed it with Warren Connors from Public Works, and he had no, from his end, he had no need for a streetlight to be installed. So because our 2-year call history shows that there's only been 1 minor accident, there's no line of sight issues or curves or anything like that, intersection problems. And other than the incidents that I mentioned, there are really no problems with significant crime problems and no problems with people congregating in the area or anything like that. So my recommendation is that we make our decision based on the criteria of the policy, and especially with the first one, don't deviate from that. And it doesn't look like the call history justifies the installation of the light by the town. I understand it's something that the neighbors like, but if we don't stick by the criteria, it might be setting a precedence for other people that want the same thing. So that's my thought on it, but the final decision is to vote of the board.
It makes sense to me, like you say, to adhere to sort of policy, because otherwise we'd be, going crazy with this. But I guess it means they're frightened, for whatever reasons. So I guess in a case like this, if we, as a board, agree not to put in the light, do you send some letter that, when possible, we'll do increased patrols or some sort of reassurance? Because clearly it's about, they're scared or something.
We'll draft a letter and
Yeah.
I'll tell them about the street lighting, but I will also remind them that we'll continue with increased patrols and patrols and to stay in contact. And,
Yeah.
we need to do something proactive on that end.
Yeah.
So you want us to address it in a motion?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I move to accept the chief's recommendation to adhere to protocol and not install the light, and to send the discussed nice letter.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Those in favor?
Motion. Personnel, so work.
Accept the chief's report?
We need a motion
Oh.
to approve
Move
the
to
chief's report.
Approve the chief's report.
Second. Anyone? Stevie? Second.
Yeah, I'll say.
All those in favor?
Thank you. Okay, Chief, go ahead.
Personnel.
Yep.
Yes.
Workman's compensation update. Our dispatcher, who had been out of work for the past several months, was released by the physician, and happy to say he returned back to work on this past Sunday, June 10th, so he's back
Is that full duty or elected?
full duty.
No. I think it's light.
No. No, he's back to duty.
He's back.
It's light, but the light
Light.
duty
But there's
restrictions
really no
don't pertain to his
restrictions. It's
actual
just-
job.
Oh,
No lifting of heavier than 3 pounds, there's no,
Right,
that doesn't
nothing
apply.
unless it's a water jug.
It doesn't apply, so.
Yeah.
No.
No, water jugs.
Because he's still.
Update on our officer that was, I mentioned before, that just finished field training, so it's Officer Carl Rodriguez Perez. I'm happy to report to you that this officer has successfully completed his 4-hour portion of his field training process. On May 30th, I came out with a special order releasing him from field training, so he's eligible to become part of minimum manpower, and will be participating in the bid selection process. He's been doing a great job so far, and we anticipate that his good work pattern ethic will continue. And just an update, I think I mentioned last month, we have an officer who's planning on going on family medical leave, and that officer became a proud father of twins at the end of last month, so effective May 23rd, he put in his request and began his family medical leave to assist with the care of the newborn kids and his wife, and he anticipates being out to the beginning of August. The last topic of their personnel was Officer Sanchez, just an update. He's a member of the Connecticut Army National Guard, as you know, and this is the time when he has his annual summer drill training, so he's away. He's down at Fort Devens, and he left on January 2nd, and will be back on he left on June 2nd, and will be returning on June 24th. So so we're without him during that time. That's it for personnel.
Yeah.
So how many officers do we have on staff, I guess?
We have 23, so we have 16 patrolmen, with one vacancy that we're in the process of filling. That'll give us 17. And then come July 1st, we'll be looking to hire another to fill the 18th to the added patrol position that was in the budget.
So the next item on the agenda is the budget.
Nothing new for the
Nothing
budget.
new.
Okay. New business. First item is the appointment of the commission liaison to union contract negotiations. It's my understanding that in prior years, there was a member of the commission that was part of that process, and that has not been filled for a couple of years. I had a conversation with, I'm trying to think of who it was, with someone in town hall regarding, with that negotiation process coming up, we have one commission member that has a lot of experience dealing with union negotiations, and I would like to appoint Mr. Falsigno to that spot if he's willing to accept that obligation.
Sure.
Thank you.
Whatever the chair would like me to
Thank
do.
you,
would be
I
my
appreciate
honor.
it. Next item on the agenda is review of the town ordinance open hold policy. One thing I forgot to do is to ask for the policy, the ordinance to be attached.
Okay.
So it may be hard for us to talk about without that. So maybe we'll address that next meeting. This,
That's fine.
I apologize, I forgot to ask
Okay.
Janice to do that. Next item, new business, distribution of lieutenant's responsibilities. So with the vote of lieutenant's position being eliminated, we figure out who's going to pick up those obligations that he has.
Somebody tell me what they are. Is there a list of?
There is a
Duties.
list of, I don't know if you have them,
I'll list
of
those.
the lieutenant's obligations.
I have my note of this. I can read it down to you. I didn't bring a list for everyone.
But, so I guess,
Hard to talk about it. I mean, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'd like to see it at some point. Or to make a decision on what the responsibilities are if we don't know, to distribute them if we don't know what they are.
Well, because we're talking about tonight, we should probably
You can make
go
it.
through that.
Can I just clarify?
Yes.
We had voted to eliminate the position, and then we voted differently, but it was already eliminated?
It was already eliminated because the
The vote
vote,
stays?
well, it was not our vote, it's finance's decision.
Okay.
The budget, they didn't approve the line item.
I see.
Well, they didn't approve that budget, so
I see. So our subsequent vote,
had really no impact because they already made their decision, and then it went through finance, and then Board of Selectmen, and then town vote.
given that we unvoted the elimination, does that mean when the next budget comes around, it's put back in?
No.
Oh.
You can if you want.
Right, we'd have to
Yeah.
do
Right,
that.
so
It's
now we
like a
take
new-
another vote.
Right, take another
It's our
vote, we have to
budget.
start over, right?
It's our budget, so we can either continue with or without it, or make other
I see.
arrangements. We can add anything we want to a
I
budget.
just
Yeah,
want to
that's
get the
fine.
lay of the land.
So now we have to figure out, who's going to pick up those responsibilities.
Sure.
So the ideas that have been discussed were splitting up among the 5 sergeants or the management team, these 3. But I guess to,
It's hard to make that decision if you don't, I mean, for me,
right.
I wouldn't be speaking intelligently.
There was a packet that I saw of a listing of the obligations.
Right, I
duties.
can make you a copy of this. You want me
Yeah,
to
could
take
you?
a minute, we can make a copy
Yeah,
of
sure.
this?
When was that? Did I miss a meeting or something? I was just surprised. I'm learning about that tonight. Was that discussed in another meeting?
Yes, last
Last
meeting.
meeting or something? Okay. This last meeting, I don't remember hearing this. But it was, it's there to be known.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can't remember which,
That's all right.
but it did come up when, how would that impact what's going to happen in the future?
We
Yeah.
talked about that.
Right, no, as far as the change in vote, and that it had no, ultimately had no.
Can we go back to one item with this liaison that I'm
Sure.
taking on? If someone has to contact me, let me know when when does the contract open again?
I will talk to Tony Jennings and have him do
It's
this.
still,
Open right
it's
now.
still, yeah, but this contract's still in effect until June of 2019.
So there's nothing,
Nothing.
well, they must start
Probably like
negotiating.
6 months before.
6 months before,
something.
okay. So it's not until January, so.
Yeah, but I think that
We're talking about the new
the management of the town starts
Before
before
that
that.
they're
So-
negotiating,
It's great, no
Well,
problem.
I mean,
yeah.
And that's with, who handles that for the town? Sarah?
Dave Ryan,
Dave Ryan?
and Tony to some extent.
Okay, great.
And you?
Anything I can help with? Pleasure.
What's everybody doing tonight?
Wonderful.
So you have anything?
Father's Day plans, it's got 27 texts from my kids
We can,
trying to coordinate.
we can.
in DC.
We'll try.
I'm just saying, but it's on.
I know, but then we can't talk about
What's on the agenda?
the executive session. We can't talk about the executive session.
Is that now?
But what's on there?
It's executive session now?
Yeah.
No, we're not,
Oh,
I don't think we're gonna be having executive.
Oh, you're not?
I don't think.
No.
No, no.
We can't, not, we
We're
can't
just
talk
waiting
about
for
this.
copies.
So we have to read. Read through.
Well,
This is the 7th inning stretch to get a cook.
Yeah, that's right. For pasta.
Any fish in that pond behind your house?
You know what?
I was asking your wife if I could have permission to fly fish right there. At least practice.
What's that? Yeah.
So I'll be a seasoned fisherman when I retire.
Do you fish a lot?
I have been. Yeah. It's it's just stressful. I tell Frank, I went up to Houstonic Meadows up in Sharon last week. It was like being, that movie River Runs Through It with Brad Pitt. It was like, I felt like I was in heaven. And I ended up catching 2 trout. The water's up to here, water's running through it, and it's beautiful up there. It's like, it's like you're in another world. But I was watching the other, because it's strictly fly fishing up there. You can't do anything else. And it's right on the Houstonic River, there's a state park there. And I was watching the other fly fishermen, and they're changing flies, and like every 5-10 minutes they're changing the fly. So they're actually changing the fly too. So after 3 changes, I ended up catching 2 nice good-sized trout.
Congrats. Sounds
Pardon?
fun.
Oh, yeah,
Fun.
it is. Nice.
Okay, there's 5 sets, if you just pass them down there, offset.
Thank you.
Where's Matt?
They're next to you.
It's right next to
Oh, I didn't see that.
Excuse me. Very welcome.
So is this, the memo sheet, this front page, is this the list of all the obligations?
No, that's the one that says memo on top, that's
Right.
the one that the sergeants are doing now, or as a 27, that's the one I issued prior. The other one, that's that,
What other one?
Other than
that list there,
the
that,
second
On this-
page,
Yes,
It's two-sided,
the
that's the
type, okay.
lieutenants.
Okay.
other than pistol permits, why do you fingerprint the public?
Huh?
Other than pistol permits, why do you fingerprint the
oh, they
public?
come in all the time, like nonstop for job applications.
this is what-
and that, things they take.
This is what they do now.
No, this is Jeff's,
This is Jeff's responsibility.
Yes.
What goals to enable all service review.
So the list will be assigned.
Starts right at the bottom where it says maintain 24.
Did you read the top one?
So,
yeah.
Have the sergeants done all these
and,
things? This is all new for them.
The 2 major ones is assist manpower scheduling and to ensure all personnel maintain compliant and current training.
Will they have,
Those are the 2 major.
would they have
Supervision.
good supervision for that sort of stuff when it's new? Like they would ask you guys how to do it kind of thing?
Yeah, they're gonna have to read, the deputy chief's done it before when he was the lieutenant.
Yeah,
But that was years ago, things have changed, but we're gonna have to assume that responsibility and get them trained, so that
yeah,
they're up to the current status we maintain that.
yeah.
So who do you envision taking over the 5th thing, ensuring all personnel remain compliant?
That means making sure that.
No, I know what it means, who do you envision doing it?
Which sergeant
Probably Sergeant Thomas, the senior sergeant, because,
is the most senior?
yes, and then he would be taking, it looks like he'd be taking that 3 to 11 slot. We're gonna jockey the sergeants around, and we won't have the rotating sergeants, so we're gonna fill it with that 3 to 11 shift, and he would be doing that then. Pretty much like the lieutenant did. We're trying to fill that void with one of the 5 sergeants.
So hard for us to know what these things really mean, what they entail.
Well,
Like pursuit, administration, implementation of all state and federal grant opportunities. Is that like 2 hours a year or 18 hours a month? It probably varies year to year.
Right.
I mean, periodically, you have to call. I mean, having been the lieutenant,
Yeah.
I've done all this work and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's like I said, the 2 that are time consuming are the scheduling and the training. The
Yeah,
other ones
yeah.
are like, you have to keep up on top of it.
Yeah,
It's not like
yeah.
you can wait 3 months and then end up calling them. You have to know that maybe once or twice a month, you have to contact the Highway Safety Division, any grants out there, anything coming up, and maybe they'll say no, and just check back with me next month, and it's constant. A lot of those things, it seems like they're little things that are going on, but, you have to stay up on top of them, and what training is available.
All the things that are on there have been one person's full-time job for the
Yeah.
last,
Yeah.
for the last few decades. So that what we're trying to do is take those responsibilities and divvy them up so they all get responsibly done. And also, so other people learn for the future, they could step up into those places and know what to do.
Is
The main
there-
thing is we just want to, he's gone for the most part, he'll be gone, in another week or two. And
That will not be pretty.
we just want to be prepared to move forward and get, make sure
Has
everything
he
stays
left a
covered.
detailed, like, the medical equivalent is a sign out? Has he left a more detailed sign out such as, this I did Tuesdays at 3 and this was every third Friday at 4, I made this call, there's no details? This is all we have?
Not exactly, so they're going to have to set all that up.
Uh-huh.
He may in fact do it that way,
But there's no.
but that's where you're going to
documentation.
assign it to a sergeant, and he's going to pick his own schedule on how to get it done, but he's going to be responsible
Yeah.
for it.
And they're not all going to be working that same evening shift that he was doing, so some
Sure.
will be working all different
Yeah,
shifts.
sure.
That's what we have to divvy it up.
Yeah.
Certainly, he had a checklist, otherwise, he wouldn't keep up on everything.
Yeah,
But a lot of the things that he was responsible for, they're either quarterly meetings or could be monthly meetings, could be, weekly meetings. And some of those things, he's the contact person when, like the lethality assessment program. I know they're periodically they're calling him. How are things going over there with your, and that's big, the whole domestic violence issue. And he's got to stay on top of that.
so when our business is to distribute these responsibilities, obviously we can't, because you know it and we don't. So how do you go about doing it? I know obviously a lot goes to Sergeant Thomas because he's the most senior. The rest, do you have?
Right, so we kind of know, we have a feeling of who we think might be the best person for some of those, and might have some knowledge of those, but it also will matter on what shifts some of them might
Sure,
hit, and so there's a
sure.
lot of different things that kind of
Sure.
come into effect
Yeah.
of what we have to do. So that's what we're trying to put together right now and trying to find out, trying to get organized so we could do that.
Okay.
So because he's leaving, like I said, I need to cover all these job responsibilities
Yeah,
and to make sure that they get done. So using the 5 sergeants that we have, we want to use them the best we could and to assist us in getting that done. We already have our own 2 full-time jobs that we're
yeah,
pretty much going on, take on an entire another job is, it's just not efficient. It's not, the volume is just way too much to make it efficient. But to accomplish it with the sergeants, it requires that, we're going to change our shifts. We're going to be using 5 sergeants to cover what 6 did. We're going to eliminate that overlapping sergeant that we used to work on all the different shifts. They're not going to be part of minimum manpower. They'll be increasing their responsibilities in different ways. And they're going to be adding new duties for them that they weren't responsible for before. So what happened when all that kind of got compounded, because we're management and their union is bound by a contract, so that's where we had to consult with Mr. Ryan on that, and because we'd be assigning things that were historically non-union work to union people. So that's where we are with that. So, we're just trying to get all the jobs done and also at the same time make sure that I can ensure supervision. We have a young force and we're looking to moving forward with, after this change that we have, and we want the sergeants to be sergeants.
I have a question. Last time we offered employment to that kind of senior officer who'd been an officer, I think, in New Haven. And he's a senior person. He's been a lieutenant?
No, he was a patrol. So,
Okay. Because he just seemed quite seasoned and stuff, but yeah, okay.
And the big thing with this whole change that we're going through, you know, is also to make sure that we spread the knowledge of all these different tasks around, so not just one person.
Yeah.
We're kind of in a, over the years, there's just a few people that did a majority
Yeah,
of
that's
the
not a good
stuff, and
idea.
then when that person left,
No one knew.
nobody, you know, and we're kind of almost like that with Jeff now, you know, a lot of stuff he did, nobody else ever did it. But, you know,
So
we're
all
gonna figure it out,
five will
get
do
it
a lot
done.
of this.
So I have to tell you what's disappointing to me. I didn't mean, were you finished?
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
sorry.
What's disappointing to me is that we made a financial decision, I believe, back in March, though it got reversed and, right? So here we are, we have to make a decision in June 12th, and we have the person leaving in a week or so. But we've known about this since March, and once again, something that maybe, you know, maybe a little meretricious, but it just seems to me that we should have been having this discussion 2 months ago, or a month and a half ago. All right, this is the first time I'm seeing this sheet of paper, and now we're asked to make a decision that not only affects administrators, but also could possibly affect 5 sergeants and their union obligations. Am I right? Because whatever decision we make, if we decide to redistribute this to the sergeants, that creates a union issue, am I right? Is that what I'm hearing? Correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
it's definitely, it has to go through the union, it's a contractual issue, but you know, you just, in all due respect, in response to that, we've been going back and forth whether we started planning what we were going to do, get ready, because the position was going to be eliminated, then the position was back on, then it was off, it was on, and then, so we really had, we didn't get a final, we kind of knew right before the annual meeting that
Which
it
was
was
April?
going to be for sure.
Annual meeting was April, right? April?
End of it, yeah.
May.
It was the end of April.
No, I think it was.
Middle of April.
That's a
if I'm not mistaken.
preliminary, and then
Yeah,
May was
you
the
know.
first beginning of May.
So, you know, we didn't wait till the last time. We kind of ourselves too didn't know which way we were going. We didn't, you know, once the budget, the lieutenant's slot was in, and then all of a sudden, you know, we changed. Some budget changes were made, and then we kind of flip-flopped back and
It
forth a
just
little bit.
seems-
So,
It just seems to me that to make an informed, intelligent decision on my end, it just seems that it would have been a little bit more pragmatic, I guess, if we had this information as soon as possible or earlier than we do now. It's just very,
Though I have to say, it seems to me that they've been working on this for a while. The details are new to us, but clearly they've already mapped out who can do what, and we're not making that level of decision. So you've been working on this.
so we're not making that decision?
No.
We don't do the details of
I'm not
that.
talking about, but we're being asked to define and understand and then distribute, right?
Well, we're not going to make the distribution assignments. We're just going to, I take it, vote on, do we distribute the lieutenant's responsibilities to our 5 sergeants? And we'll need a motion to do that, I take it. And it seems inevitable. Even if we had more time to do this, we can't do the mapping of, oh, Rizzuti does this and Capiello does that. And you've been working on that. So it is new to us, but obviously you've been working on it because you just said you've been thinking about it.
But there's another layer to that, and that is, there's a financial component, because with union employees, when you ask them to do items that are in addition to what they're
I see.
contracted, we
There's-
have to pay for it.
I see.
So the real decision is, first, who does this? Who does these tasks? And then how is it going to be paid for? So one option is to distribute the obligations between the chief, deputy, and Janice. The other choice is the 5 sergeants. So that there is both a financial and those
Thank
are the
you.
2
I
different
didn't
areas.
get
And
that.
that's something that I didn't think.
I didn't get that,
Yeah,
right.
I mean, you wouldn't
Right,
because.
yes, Steve got it, okay.
So-
So is it,
Yeah.
so is that, or some combination of that?
No, there's not a combination of that.
Why can't there be a combination for it?
I guess that there could be a hybrid of that. The union would have to vote on whatever reduction it is. I mean, we can't pay them the same amount if we reduce the obligations.
But have we committed to increase in pay for these duties?
We have
already?
to, we have to pay them.
No,
So
have we
the union-
committed
So
to
the
it
town
yet?
has made a proposal for these obligations, this set of obligations. The town had offered to pay them $3,400 after negotiations back and forth.
So the town's already looked at this and offered to pay them this added monies, presuming
If
it
they
goes in
do
that
all
direction.
these, right, I mean, if we change that,
So is the presumption that it's additional hours if they do these, or it's just a...
doesn't have to be additional
pay?
hours, it's just additional
Duties.
duties.
And did the town know that there was another option, that the trio do it
Yes,
instead?
yes.
And so the town has already budgeted for this, so maybe is that
Well,
part
it's
of
not
Steve's
budgeted,
point?
but it's a matter of the negotiating,
Oh, I see, so a lot has happened that, I mean, we're learning this new,
Right.
you already knew all that.
yes.
So
But I get a chance to sustain it.
we need to know all this, okay. I get it,
So
now
that's
why
the-
it's an issue, thank you.
And then we have to figure out how
I
that's
see.
gonna work as far as who would do it. It's not,
I see.
it may not be feasible that the chief deputy and Janice can do all this, that's the problem. I mean, before they reached an agreement with the union on a number, that was a possibility. So I guess the question is, if there's some type of hybrid between some of this goes to the union and some of it is distributed among these three,
Yeah,
we'd have to go back, the town would have to go back and renegotiate that number.
well, why didn't that, it seems out of order, right? I mean, it would have been nice if the town hadn't already gotten into the details of money without us knowing it, maybe that was Steve's point. But,
Part of it.
But they couldn't, really, because we can't vote on something and then they negotiate the number. That wouldn't, that's how I was told.
well,
Well, we
at
could voice
this
an
point,
opinion
we,
on what we wanted them to negotiate.
exactly,
Right.
thank you, right. So,
I have another question, but if they're spending the same amount of time doing additional tasks, so that must mean that there's free time available now.
All I can say is I was told that if you ask them to do
Right.
duties above what they're
There's-
doing now, you have to be compensated for it.
There's not free time,
There's
it's
not
that
free
they're
time.
going to be, they're going to not have to cover patrol when they did, so that they'll be able to add these additional tasks. And they'll also be spread out more, because rather than 6 supervisory slots being filled with 5. So that's the kind of balance that we're trying to accomplish here.
It's the
It's
same
not that
amount
they
of
have
time.
more time, it's that we're going to allot their time in a different way as supervisors.
That's just the rule, that's what I was told.
So I think sometimes we lose sight of what our job as a commission is, at least my interpretation of what our job as a commission is. And I know you're shaking your head yes, and I'm sure that's, kind of everybody kind of thinks that. And I think the reason being is that we have a fiduciary responsibility. That's what our responsibility is, I interpret it. So that's why it's hard to make we made a financial decision on the lieutenant, not because we didn't like him or didn't think he did a good job, but because we were in a fiscal responsible position to make a financial decision that was in the best interest of the taxpayers of this town, which is the people that put us here. So I think that's when we start losing. Unfortunately, I think as a commission, sometimes we're asked to make decisions that really kind of thwart that vision. So I think you have to keep that in mind when we make these decisions, and that's why it's, for someone like myself, it's always better to have more information early than later. That being said, again, I go back to my original statement, which is our responsibility is not to tell you guys how to run your department. We're just a fiscal oversight of what you do, and we either give you the money to do it or we don't give you the money to do it for whatever fiscal responsibility we feel that we have. So, that being said, our decision is always, in my opinion, is a financial decision. It's not a administrative decision. I'm not going to tell the chief how to run his department because I don't know how to run a police department. I'm a business guy. That's what I do. So,
But it's very difficult in many
It is.
cases to
It's
parse
hard.
that because
It is.
you're making financial decisions and you can, by making a financial decision, you can direct how things are
Right, exactly.
operated. So that's,
But we also give them we also give him a framework of what he has to work within financially. So,
I have, now that I understand things better, and thank you all, and sorry for being the class dunce, I take it the three of you have thought long and hard about this, and is there anything in here you feel the three of you would actually be able to do and should do? Or do you think it all needs to go to the 5 sergeants?
I think that it needs to go to the 5 sergeants only because of the volume of work that we already have. And the scheduling and the training are like the key components of the department. And they're time consuming and there's time restraints on things, and it just wouldn't work, it wouldn't be efficient just putting it on us. We already have 2 full-time jobs that we're already.
And none of these tasks sort of slip into something you're kind
there's
of
no
doing.
overlapping these, I mean, you
Right.
did the job for how many years? 20 years, right? You were the lieutenant?
Correct.
Right, was it 20 or
No, it's 13 years I did.
13? But I'm saying, so is there any overlap here that,
Sorry to beat a dead horse, but
That-
this
Certainly
is
I can
why it
oversee
felt
it. I'm doing it now.
It's needed to
The
have been
the
done
lieutenant has basically
before.
left. I'm doing
Positions
scheduling.
eliminated.
I've just spent
It's done.
half of the afternoon doing some changes that the chief wanted me to make on the schedule, so it'll be posted properly if everything goes right. It's very, very time consuming. It's not something, and I mean, certainly if we had a program that could, that could do everything for you, and you just put in the information and then it does it, you don't have to spend all day on it. But you have to go in there, you have to close the door, and you have to do it. I can't take 5 or 6 calls that I might have got today, that I know I got today, that were just stopped, then I have to go back, and what was I working on? I mean, it's not confusing, and it's the same thing with training. It's just you have to stay on top of that. There's departments that have you let it go for a month or two, and you're going to have a mess. You have to stay on top of it almost on a daily basis, knowing what officers need training, when they're going to get that training, and it's not just once a year.
Okay, another question
You address
then,
it.
since I'm on the steep slope of the learning curve. Given the increased funds that would be necessary to pay the 5 sergeants because of doing these additional kinds of duties, even though not at additional time, has someone run the numbers? The budget apparently dictated to eliminate the lieutenant's position that saves this chunk of money.
Yes.
Given the overtime, what's the difference now?
It's not overtime.
it's not overtime?
I don't mean overtime, you know what I'm saying?
It's a stipend, as I understand it,
It
right?
is.
How much
So
is the stipend for
$3,400 per sergeant,
person?
and the
For the year?
lieutenant position package is $180,000.
Okay, so
For the
it
year.
still
So
significantly helps
it's
the budget.
3,400 times 5 versus
Okay, whatever.
180,000.
So it's
Thank you.
18,000 a year, basically, right?
And I think from the.
It's a little over 20.
No, I get that.
That was negotiated
The
through
finance
the
director.
bargaining
Oh, yeah, I get that.
unit
All right.
and the town.
Right,
So,
thank you.
It's not
But they need your tacit approval for
Right.
their recommendation, because they're the ones that they're gonna recommend, or gonna be given the okay to spend the money, not the Board of Police Commissioners.
but they can't do it
Correct.
without,
But they
Or
won't
approval.
do it
Right.
without the commission's approval.
so maybe this may help. As far as scheduling, can you put a time frame on how many hours a week that takes?
Jesus.
Is it, because we don't have any concept, we
Right,
know
we have no
roughly what
concept.
it means, but we have no
Is it
way to
like
put
2 or
that.
is it like 27? Just,
Well, I'd have to do it for a couple months to give you that thing, because unless you get it from the lieutenant. I said, but you're daily getting vacation requests, you're daily schedule adjusting people to go to training. These are all things that are incorporated in that daily sheet, that 2-week sheet that you have up on the board. And it's, like I said, you're dealing with it every day.
Right. Can you ballpark
But
it, or
that-
you couldn't even give us an idea?
It's not just like one item of just scheduling, it's the whole lieutenant package of what he did. It was a full-time
I know,
commitment.
but if we're trying to parse out the obligations, I mean, we're splitting them up anyway among 5. If that's the most significant, the training
The
and.
training and the schedule. I've always
Schedule.
sat down and talked to one of the sergeants about taking over some of it's always going to be, the oversight is always going to be with the chief and the deputy chief of the schedule itself.
Right.
It's administrative duty. But for them to be able to do all that inserting and looking at vacation requests that we approve, schools or training that they're going to be getting, that's going to be incorporated into the schedule. And you got to have enough people working to do that. So there's a lot of variables associated with doing the schedule. And you're doing it, by human standards. You're doing it physically. Where, if we had a program, obviously the program would do it for you.
Are there police programs that do
Oh,
this?
and we've looked at them. I mean, there's where somebody wants a vacation day, he says, you put it in the computer, and then the computer will tell you whether you can get the vacation day or not, or a training day, or this. And if you in fact want that person to go to training, it'll tell you, how many officers you have to utilize to
Because
to
it's
cover that
such a
shift.
time-consuming obligation, have you ever looked into that,
with the.
the
The
program?
program, yeah.
We've recently started looking into it to
About
see
$8
if in the
grand
future we might
initially
be able to
about-
do something like that.
About $2,000 a year to maintain it.
And
It's
how
all
much
software.
initially? How much is that?
It's about $8 grand.
Uh-huh. So that'd be
That
worth
sounds
running
worth
some
it.
numbers, it might be
Sounds like
worth
it's
it.
But, I'm not trying to create this enmity between the police commission and the administration and the police officers, right? But you gotta look at the world that we're in, and that's why this whole thing was created with this lieutenant's issue, am I right? I mean, taxes are up and property values are down. So either we have to take the lead and kind of do more with less, which I know you guys have been doing, but every year, and I think you can ask these two gentlemen over here, every year as things become more strained, since it's not like we have a huge business tax base in this town like Orange or some of these other towns, they're going to keep throwing numbers at us, I think. As time goes on, they're going to becoming more and more stringent. And that's just my view. It's
I
just
mean, there
my
are
view
towns
of the
that do
world.
it, that have zero tax increases.
Right. I mean, it's just my view of the world. So, I'm not going to tell you how to run the department because you guys are the pros. And I certainly wouldn't tell that gentleman over there, where he's got to go one night if he got 3 calls. I'm not, not what I do. I don't understand what he does.
Well, with that
So,
said, Steve,
but again, what I'm saying is we certainly trust your judgment, but again, I go back to my original statement is that, we're a fiscal oversight board. That's what we are.
But with that, we're trying fiscally, with less, we're trying to do more. We're trying to do that as efficiently and
Right.
responsibly.
And that's
as
why
we
it's
could
hard for us to make, I
sure
mean, we have to make a
public
decision
safety
because
and
that's just the position we're in, but it's hard to, we have a list of obligations on a piece of paper. And again, great question. I mean, I don't know how long it takes to set up a
I
schedule
couldn't tell you
or,
exactly how many hours it takes. I just know
I mean, if,
all those duties were a
Is it better
full-time
divided up?
job that need to
I mean,
be
you have 5
covered.
sergeants and 3 administrators. Is it better to take these and divide them by 8, or is it better to divide it by 5 or by 3? That's really the decision we have to make, and it's hard to delineate each one of these items and say, okay, yeah, well, you can do this and you can, because how could we, unless we know what they are, it's hard to really say this works and this doesn't. And again, that goes back to administrative decisions on your part.
But it's not, it's financial also.
But at the end of the day, it's a financial decision.
and it's an agreement with the union, because a lot of these are administrative jobs that we as an administration could not tell a sergeant to do, because otherwise they'd have your collective bargaining unit again, and then they'd be filing grievance. And that's
Right, so
why
that's-
they went
That's why we're here.
to them,
right?
so
And that's
they
why we're
would have
sitting
an
here, we have this
opportunity
dilemma.
to take on a lot of these responsibilities and help the chief out. And I think the chief spent a lot of time putting this together to present to you that it's like Steve said, several months ago, you have 5 sergeants, make it work. And I think that's what the chief's trying to do. He's trying to make it work with what we have.
It's just that some of these changes, because it's a contractual thing, the manager, you could figure out, you could tell us what we have to do. With the union, to change some of this, so now we're trying to cover like this 3 to 11 slot that vacated our lieutenant there. We can't make those changes without some sort of negotiation, and that's why we went to Mr. Ryan, and that's why the union is negotiating to see how we can make it work. We're telling you what we need. We told them what we need, what our plan is. What I recommended would be best with the 5 sergeants, and then that went into the hand. That's how it resulted with the financial part. So the union had to negotiate with the town, and that's what the negotiation was. But the long and short of it is we need to cover these positions, and the lieutenant's gone, and we're coming into the summer, and there's a lot of work that has to be done. There's a full-time job that needs to be split up, and tasks that need to be done, and supervision that has to make sure that, you know, that we cover. So that's, you know,
These
that's
sergeants,
how
if
we came out with, that's what the goal is with this.
you look at these responsibilities, this is gonna make the sergeants a lot more rounded than they are right now. They're gonna be the people that you're gonna be looking for when, you know, the chief decides or I decide to retire. You know, these are the people you're gonna be looking at, and they wanna be able to, well, I don't know how to do scheduling, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that. This gives the chief an opportunity to start teaching these, you know, these younger sergeants, patrolmen.
Well, right, so back to, we're trying to sort out the 5 versus 3 and 8 and all this. So actually, even if it technically goes to the 5, you 3 are doing a ton of stuff to help them and to sort it out and to look things up and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I guess that's a question.
Negotiate the numbers?
Yeah.
Negotiate the numbers? You want to suggest that, Chloe? You want me to? Oh, you want to?
I don't think it's bad. I mean, is it something we need to look at where we divide some of these items that are administrative, that the 3 of you are able to perform within the time frame that you have, and the ones that really should be designated to the sergeants, we designate them to the sergeants, kind of a team effort.
Well, I don't think it'd be up to them. No disrespect to the board.
That's right.
I think we get back to, the board doesn't tell the chief
Right.
where these job responsibilities are gonna go. Because
So then even why
the
not?
chief won't even know until he knows what sergeant picked days. And who will get some of those responsibilities, because he's probably gonna get to a point where, you know, there's probably a third of these he's not gonna be able to even give to the sergeants. He's gonna have to fish them out to Janice or I to do.
Well, so that basically, then you agree with me, basically with what I'm telling, with my statement then? That maybe some of this should be administrative and some should be for sergeants. So should be performed by the sergeants, right? I mean, that's.
Well, I think
That's why
it's
I
going
said
to be, but just by the mere fact that
But if that's the case.
we don't have enough
then
sergeants to do all this work.
I guess one of the things that feels funny is you're kind of saying it's a fait accompli and we have to go this way, so much so that I said, oh, it's going to go this way, and you all correct me on that. When I look at the mailed agenda versus the new one, which I guess was sent in that email, this distribution of lieutenant's responsibilities is on the new one, which is one of the reasons you had a new one, but it's just sort of startling.
No, the reason why is because as of yesterday, the union hadn't agreed to the number. That's why we had to determine, that's why in my eyes, I think it's all or nothing. It's either all the tasks go to these 3, or we reach an agreement with the union on the money. They did not agree until today.
Oh, they did agree eventually?
Today they did.
Oh, okay.
That's why it was up in the air when I
see.
asked
So
the
we're-
agenda item.
okay.
What was the final number?
Because it sounds like what you're saying is there's going to be, regardless, even if you say they're all going
Towns
there,
34.
you're still going to have to
And they-
retain some.
Yes.
Well, we're always gonna
It was
have to have
reoffered.
responsibility of making
Yeah.
sure the schedule's
Yes.
right and
Right.
vacation, you know, we're gonna oversee the vacation, we're not gonna let them just do whatever. We're still gonna end up with more work.
Right.
Even when we give all this to them.
Right.
It's not like, you know, we're still down one administrator now, then we're gonna, no matter what we give away, there's administrative stuff and my responsibility and the deputy's responsibility that they won't be able to do, no matter how much we give them. But this is just a chance to get everything done. You know, they were kind of excited that they have a chance to buy into it, that they're gonna be able to not be in patrol, be
So-
supervisors, learn all these tasks, and they know that, you know, they're the future of the department, so this is their chance to start working towards their future and preparing for that. So that's where we are, but the bottom line is that we're just trying to get the job
So,
done
Chief,
without the
I have a
lieutenant.
suggestion that might be palatable. Since you are the chief executive officer of the police department, that's how I kind of look at you. Why don't we, in my opinion, can't speak for the rest of the board, why don't we, for this coming budget, as of July 1, I believe it starts, right? For this coming budget, put the $3,400 stipend in for the 5 sergeants and review it for the following year's budget. So do it for a year, see how it works out, see if you're happy with it, see if the sergeants are happy with it, and have that as a line item doesn't become part of their salary. It's a line item stipend in the new budget. So that can either be, so that we can review it again the following fiscal year. Since this is kind of a new, this is something new and different for everybody.
So line item in the budget starting July 1st?
I'm sure we can petition the Board of Finance, I would think, perhaps. Is that something we can do?
Isn't that,
That's a union,
It's a
that's a
contractual
negotiating.
item.
I don't know.
But they've accepted it.
You want to discuss with the Board of
But they,
Finance?
I think the agreement is that it's a one-time $3,500 stipend to
Stipend,
their
right.
base salary.
3,400.
3,400, right.
Right.
3,400.
So you put that
3,400, I'm
in.
sorry.
It has to be budgeted,
So what
right?
happens in the next year? It's a one-time stipend, what happens next?
Then next year, I guess we'd have to budget for it.
Or just
Or remove it.
revisit it, I mean, to
Right.
figure out whether we want to continue.
Right, the kind of
Or
one-year
remove it.
pilot thing.
No,
It's a one-time.
and just make it exceptionally, explicitly clear that this is something that we're trying, and if that's, and if it doesn't work, then we'll remove those items that they're doing from their job description, and we'll
Or renegotiate at least.
renegotiate it. That way we're fiscally responsible to the constituents of the
I
town.
don't think Board of Police Commissioners can negotiate with, it's a union issue.
No, but we can decide to
So
make
we're
it
the ones that have to
1 year.
approve aren't we the ones that approve the contract? Right?
No,
Don't
Yes,
the
we,
town does.
Yeah, we do. We
The
actually,
town-
The
we sign
town
off on it.
and the union body.
We
I
sign
think
off
telling
on
anybody negotiate it, I think we have to sign off on it.
We don't negotiate it, we
We
sign
sign
off.
off.
Sign
contract.
the contract.
I have signed the contract. I had reviewed the
union body?
contract. Yeah, I had reviewed.
Oh, okay.
Don't you sign the contract? You do, right?
Yes,
As chairman of the
I
policeman.
remember signing the contract and review, I think we have to sign off on that. I think it's negotiated by the town and the labor negotiator.
We don't, right.
No, I've been doing it, I've never seen, I'm sorry, maybe you do.
So
Maybe
what-
I'm mistaken, I thought that I had to sign off on it.
So what
I remember
Why
there was,
why did they ask you to sign the contract then, if you didn't have to?
I remember there was an issue with one part of it. There was a reference in the contract to a document that was not part of the contract.
Correct.
I had an issue with that. And I sent it back to Dave Ryan and they said they had to find out what that
Medical issue.
was. Someone wrote it, I forget what the issue was, but someone wrote it and didn't realize that was a problem.
Can I, you made the point that this may come up again, given the current economic situations. I just want to make a plea, and I said this when we were doing this. In the future, these are all issues that we need to have worked out prior to making a change, not after the fact, and certainly not 2 weeks before the end of the month. I mean,
Goes back to what I said before.
no, it's different than what you said before.
It's in addition to what I said before.
I think that's something we should, before this got set in motion, it needed to be thought about. What does the person in this position do, and what are we going to do with those tasks? So now, 2 weeks before the end of the month, we're trying to figure that out, and this should have been started by the commission before. We should have gotten these answers before this was finalized, not after it was finalized. And
I agree.
so as we see this in the future, we need to not be in this position again.
Which part of this?
The part, we're figuring this out now when it's a fait accompli. This should have been figured out before we made this decision, I think, and I said it at the time. Just saying it again now, because we're gonna walk this road again. So I don't think that you can
We
make
didn't
these
have all,
kinds of changes
I
without a
don't
plan.
believe I have all the information to make that decision.
But we're gonna have to figure out how to get it, because I don't think these kinds of things should be made without a plan. Because now we're faced with, we have 2 weeks to come up with a plan, correct? It's not a position to put the chief in, it's not a,
I mean, we really,
okay.
and in the future, if we run into a situation like we ran into with this whole lieutenant's thing, or some big major changes like that, before we
This needs to,
make that
I
move,
need
we need
this,
to have
I need
some
this
plan
before we make that
beforehand.
move, not
Right.
No, we're
after.
getting,
Before we-
I mean, we also didn't realize that there was a issue with.
Well,
This came up last week.
Right,
That's
so.
what I was told.
So our chair was told last week,
Okay.
but here we are, and I think we're gonna have to
We're gonna have to
do something.
right,
So,
Only because he has to field these tasks.
correct.
immediately.
Right.
That's why there's a
So-
rush to do this.
So I thought Steve's idea was a very useful one, that we say, I don't know how to call it, like a 1 year or a pilot or a provisional agreement, that for 1 year, we distribute the lieutenant's responsibilities, as has already begun doing, to the 5 sergeants.
At the end, who knows, at the end of the year, you might not like the way it's working out.
But
You
it
might want
doesn't-
to change it.
it doesn't
Gives you
sound
the
like-
ability.
It doesn't sound like we even have to do that. It sounds like that's intrinsic to this process. If we do it, there's a stipend for 1 year. I'm not sure we have to add it.
Well, I only think that there's no expectation that anyone has that this is going to be in perpetuity.
Right.
Stipend that's always going to exist
Right.
at this pay rate. It's
Right.
going to, you know, time changes, we
Well, did the union
renegotiate.
specify anything about that?
No, definitely. I mean, I wasn't part of that.
So
part
it
of the
doesn't hurt to
discussion.
put a time frame if we want to.
So
It
it's my,
says it's a one-time stipend, Tony
Right.
said, added into their base salary.
Okay, so it says 1 time.
so it's my understanding that your preference is that these tasks be distributed among the 5 sergeants
Correct.
to the
Yeah.
best of your ability.
Yeah.
Look, we're, like I said before, we're still gonna have more work even when we do this, but
Okay.
that's the most effective way that we could get it done is that way. Just because the amount of time and the in the work load, it's just too much for us to take on another full-time job.
Yeah.
So that's.
What I'm not
I
clear on is
apologize, but
why
I have
if
to leave,
it's
so if you
no,
want to make, if you want
Let's
to,
make a motion.
if you want to make the motion, you want me to vote, if
Wanna
not,
frame the motion?
I mean, you have 3 people, so I don't know.
Want to frame the motion?
Sure, I'll frame the motion where we will take the advisement of the chief of police and distribute the lieutenant's duties to the 5 sergeants. And we will, I mean, it's already been agreed on, the $3,400 stipend per sergeant, right? And we'll review this before the next fiscal year ends. And that gives you the ability to either agree to continue or to say that you want to make a change and do something different. And that gives the chief and the assistant chief the ability to run the department and the administrative obligations of the department the way they see fit.
Is there a second?
But before we vote on that, could I just run down what the agreement was between the union and?
Yes.
So it's on record and everybody knows what.
Chief, I don't mean to interrupt, I gotta take off.
Okay, no, we'll see you soon. So there'll be one patrol, the 5 patrol sergeants, there'll be 1 sergeant assigned to each shift, A, B, and C. They'll bid their shifts by seniority like they do now. And then there'll be 1 sergeant assigned to the 3 to 11 shift. That is where the lieutenant used to be. So one of those 5 will be there. And then we'll have the sergeant assigned to ISU, just like we currently have now. The patrols, all the sergeants will no longer be a part of minimum manpower, provided vacancy can be filled by overtime. So they won't be 1 of 2, they'll be the supervisor, not a patrolman any longer. The 3 to 11 sergeant will also assume patrol supervision to cover C squad when that evening sergeant's on his days off. That sergeant that's working will cover that. He'll continue to be the liaison to the IT with the Amity. He's going to pick up training, assist with scheduling, and perform administrative duties as assigned by the chief. And he's agreed to be on call 24/7 for patrol and operational related inquiries. And then the ISU sergeant, who works Monday through Friday in the day, he will fill the void of the patrol sergeant when he's off, because that patrol sergeant will rotate. So instead of having the overlap one, so the sergeants will fill the voids with all those. And he will also perform administrative tasks that we're going to assign to him and to the patrol sergeants. And he'll be on call as he is now, he currently is now 24/7 for criminal related items. And then there was a stipend that they worked out. It was the one-time $3,400 increase added to each sergeant's base salary with the wording that Commissioner Falsino just brought up. And then they had also, Rob came to that OIC compensation that they talked about, that they agreed to with the town, that when there's no sergeant working at all and the senior officer becomes the officer in charge, and the town has agreed that they would get 2 hours of comp time for each shift that they served as the officer in charge, not to be accumulated beyond 8 hours, the time to be given off in not less than 4-hour increments, and the time to be given off at the discretion of the chief or the deputy chief, so it doesn't incur any overtime.
And how often do you think that'll happen, that there'll be
The
no
what?
sergeant? How often do you think that'll happen?
It'll probably just be on, pretty much, except maybe when there's vacation or something like that, but on the normal basis, might just be on the weekend, here and there on the weekend, so it won't be that often. So that's how we kind of stretch them out, so they will have the coverage. But on the other flip side of that, the good thing is, when we had the sergeant working Monday through Friday doing IT, we didn't have a day sergeant on the weekend. So that whole cycle through there. So we gain it on one side and cover it on the other end. So it should work out okay.
So you have a
We'll try it for a
motion
year
on
and see where we're at. So,
You have a motion on the table, you need a second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Fire dispatch.
Fire dispatch, so,
fire
Did we just
dispatch?
put out a fire?
Yeah, we're
Oh my
coming
God,
down
on
to
the street
the
going
last couple of
towards
weeks.
the market with a trap.
So, good for fire dispatch?
yes,
All right.
yeah.
So from, as we all know, for many years now, and continuing for my last 2 years that I've been chief, we've been discussing issues and concerns surrounding fire dispatch. Our dispatchers are fully certified to state levels and beyond, and are certified to work anywhere in the state. For the past couple of years, I've tried to set up various types of supplemental training that might be able to enhance their skills, specifically as they pertain to fire dispatch, but there really wasn't any specific classes just specifically for fire dispatch. I reached out to the state, different agencies in the state, and then they directed me to the fire academy, the director of training, and I worked with him, and we looked at some ideas that we thought we might have. The long and short of that was that, unfortunately, the things I was thinking about doing that I thought might help wasn't in agreement with the ideas that the fire department had of what they wanted. So we weren't able to come to an agreement on that and work through that. Together, Sean, the fire chief, Rowan, and I, we've looked at some different commercial dispatch companies, and if we both agree that if we are going to use one, Priority Dispatch would be the system that we'd want to use. It's a commercial service that offers their services in 2 different ways, either card sets or in the newer computer-based software system. We've been using Priority Dispatch for numerous years now for our emergency medical dispatch, just a single card set. And so that's how we're familiar with the Priority Dispatch system. They also offer emergency fire dispatch in the card set system and in the computerized system. The only problem was if we couldn't take out the card set system because everyone including the salesmen and everyone that we've talked to, says it's not feasible for one dispatcher to manage 2 physical card sets at the same time during a crisis. So that's the problem we had, that we couldn't do both card sets. In the last few weeks, we've been in discussion with AMR, and they own they have a large operation, as you all know, and they're multi-staffed, and they have their own call center. And I found out that they've been doing the pre-arrival medical instructions for the town of Orange for years now, and also for the town of North Haven for years, and they'd offered to do ours. So I looked into it and found that the services for them to provide that service to us of the pre-arrival calls, it's already in the contract that the town has with AMR. So the wording and the language and everything is in place, and there would be no additional cost to the town. So they're willing to take over the EMD, pre-arrival instructions and all that, so we wouldn't have to do it. And even better yet, they'll assume all the quality assurance responsibilities for that, because it helps them for their national accreditation. And it takes the burden off us and the financial burden of having to have our supervisors, we have 1,000 medical calls a year, a little bit over that, to have to do all the Q&As associated with that. But what I thought the most, what would be better with that was, so if we get rid of the medical card set, we'd have the time for the dispatcher to just have one card set, and we could possibly just do the fire dispatch card set and start with that, and be better off than from where we are now as far as fire dispatch goes, hopefully. The logistics around that would all have to be worked out with the AMR.
So logistically, how are the calls routed? Because logistically, how are the calls routed? So when you dial 911,
When you dial 911, it comes in here to the dispatch.
or the new system would be,
So that it'll still, everything will still come here, nothing will be routed, and then we would take on a medical call, we'd take the dispatcher would take the initial call,
oh, then,
and find out, that they need an ambulance and a paramedic and get them going, and then they get we have a direct line to AMR, when they would call for an ambulance and tell them where they need the ambulance, so at the same time, they say, we need an ambulance, and I'm gonna transfer the caller to you for pre-arrival instructions.
so this, you said they're willing to do it, but we've been paying them for it for
We've
a
been-
while.
How
We've
do
been
we
paying
not
for
know?
it for forever, but we've
AMR
never,
for,
for years.
How is it that we didn't know that it was already in the contract that we do all
I
this?
don't know, I
That's
heard that
okay.
ours is doing it, the AMR said they
So you
would do
looked
it,
into
and
it.
I said, well, I asked Tony for the contract the other day,
Wow.
and I found it in there.
we switched to AMR when my 32-year-old was taking critical issues at Amity High School.
So you were all about it.
Well, we probably went back from that when we started doing EMD, but that was years, probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know how the decision was made, but,
So do you need a motion from us to accept this new plan?
well, no, I just wanted to share these options too. These are just options, but,
Yeah.
and then the other option is the computerized version of the priority dispatch system. And that's what a lot of call centers use that have multiple call takers, and you can do all three disciplines at once. And it's just, Sean and I, we both agree, it's a state-of-the-art system. It's the way to go. It's what larger agencies use. But the issue that arises with that, at least from my perspective, is that the salesman from the company can't show us a company that uses a computerized system and has a dispatch staff like we have.
Right,
Most of the time, we have
we're-
one dispatcher, except for 9 shifts a week. So we would be willing to do that if he could show us someplace that does it.
There's no example.
But he hasn't been able to do that. So my concern is not, I'm not trying to be negative or pessimistic, but I'm just trying to be truthful and honest that if we get that, we could certainly, the computerized system, we could certainly try it and see if it works. But the issues that goes along with that, if we're not able to meet the standards that are required, we're not going to be solving, if we can't operate with one dispatcher, we're not going to solve the issues that
What's the
keep
cost of the
arising.
computer system?
I think
It's a little over 100.
last year it was around 70,000.
It
plus the
requires
training.
how many? It requires how many
It
dispatchers?
was expensive, but the main concern is some of that money's been budgeted already in the radio project for the system. The concern that arose is if we're not able to do it, then the only way to do it, maybe, it might not be if we're able to, but would lead that you'd have to hire more dispatch staff. And from what I've been told, that's not what the direction the town's looking to go right now, is to hire more.
So one thought
staff.
could
We're trying
be
to
that we
do
go
more
with the
less.
plan that we're already paying for with the AMR, and then see if this other system, the computer system, becomes more relevant to our size of a department with our system of dispatchers.
Right, so those are the options that we have, would be eliminating eliminating the medical dispatch and send that to MR. It's an option that we could take on the fire cards. The other option is we could do the computerized one that,
This limit.
but there might, it cost more, but the only caveat with that is it might lead into hiring more dispatch
So
staff
it
if
costs more and it
necessary.
requires more personnel. So
Yes.
Which also costs more.
Right.
Which also costs
Which also
even more.
costs more.
And then I just want to share the final option that that's been being investigated and thought of by the town is outsourcing dispatch to a private regional dispatch center. Some towns do it, just dispatch the fire from a regional center and not not do it here. Some send everything, police, fire, and medical, to an outside source. My opinion is, if we had to send the fire out to somewhere else, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but I know the fire chief isn't in favor of that, and I respect him for that, his decision on that. And as far as sending everything out, police, fire, and EMS, the fire chief and I both agree that that's not the way we want to go. We want to keep it in-house in our town and keep it local, so we know who we're talking to, and and people calling them know us. So, but that's an option, and that's something that the town, is also exploring. So with that, we kind of have to come up with a decision, and those are the options. I talked with the chairman about it, and thought we'd bring it before the board tonight, and just let you know those kind of.
Do you have a
wrap.
preference?
I went to one of those facilities that handle the dispatch for other towns.
Yeah.
I didn't think it didn't impress me as something I think we should do, but that's just my,
What do you think about the AMR option?
well, I think it's a great option.
Yeah.
The genesis of this is that the fire department wanted the computer program.
Right.
It's $100,000.
Right.
It didn't seem like that we had the money to do that. We're laying off or
Right.
removing a lieutenant,
Right.
and now we're going to spend $100,000.
For something we may not need.
But, and it's also, to a large extent, it may be unfair to ask one dispatcher to handle that when it's not even feasible to do that.
That's right.
So these cards, the fire department paid for it, $7,000 for this card set where you flip the cards. The town owns it.
Yeah.
So and I think that makes sense. The chief found, the problem is we had two card sets. So we couldn't
Right.
do it with two card sets. He found the way out.
This is why the AMR option's important.
AMR takes over that
Right.
card
We just have
set.
to
So
make
that
sure-
seems like an obvious way to go.
It sounds like a
If
great
that's what we
option.
want to do.
So why don't we make a motion on that?
Well, okay, that's what we could do. We just have to make sure that it looks like we could do it. They haven't told us 100%.
So we need a little more on
Right, so
this.
that's, they said they could do it. You can make a motion
You
that
wanna-
you'd like to try it, that's fine.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work,
If they
we'll
can't do
let you
it, don't they owe us a refund?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
All
think
these years.
we just have to iron out the logistics with it, but.
Do you want to wait till we get
they
the
can-
confirmation from them that that's a go?
The EMS commission is a partner in this as well.
Right, so it's-
So actually, it might be
EMS commission-
premature to vote.
Would be useful,
Probably.
if we're voting on this kind of thing, if somebody could just lay out on a piece of paper the options
Okay.
and the pros and cons of each option.
And make sure we can do them before we vote on them. Because if you're saying we're
We'll
not
get it to
really
you for
sure about
next
the
meeting if
AMR.
you want. That's fine.
Okay.
And,
Only
and-
that it's
and
just easier, now I may have to go back to what you said 7 minutes ago to compare and contrast, so if we had it.
They would be
down.
glad to give you a tour of their facility, if you'd like. The private vendors that take.
I actually feel like I've heard enough to go with the AMR option, so I'm a little surprised to hear you say, but we're not really sure about it. So I would say
No,
we need to-
they say they could do it.
we just want to,
hate to tell you for 100%.
so what,
They said they could do it, so. I
okay, but
assume they
something
could do it.
remains to be checked?
No, we just have to figure out the logistics of how we're going to do it, because it'd be a different way of dispatching for us somewhat
Sure.
and communicating with them, but it's not uncommon. They do it in the other towns, and ours, just like us, they have to fly a car. That's how it came up. I talked to the chief in ours, and Ray and I, and that's how we
That's
kind
how
of
you
got
learned it,
And then so
yeah.
why don't we
Yeah.
do it? And,
Yeah, we can.
But in just one point, I want to clarify that as far as the money for the computerized priority dispatch system, there was money appropriated in the radio project budget for that, so there is funding for that in there.
But it's, I get
No, I
it.
just wanna-
And even
I
though it's not on
just
our
make
budget,
sure
it
it's
just,
out there.
it seems to be inconsistent
Seems
that
ironic.
we're reducing a
Right.
position, then we're spending 100,000.
Yeah.
When we can find other alternatives.
Yeah.
The one point I wanted to make, the presentation I saw, so they have some police departments that are dark. So when you walk into our department, there's a dispatcher at the front desk.
Yeah.
A person that you see and
Yeah.
talk to. You hit a button, and there's a video screen, and you talk to this group in Waterbury. Hello, this is the Northern Police Department, can I help you? There's no one there, so
I
I
like
just don't
having
think we
someone here.
we don't have the type of town I think that we would want.
No,
that.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't like that.
No, no.
Yeah.
Completely
I
dark.
like when you're here. When I've had to come in when my teenager
Right.
kids were crazy, I wanted a person here.
No.
And we want it the same way, just like when you came in tonight, You saw me up in dispatch?
Yes.
They had a
Yeah.
major accident out here, and I was able to walk up there and be able to coordinate if anything else was needed. So it's
Yeah.
just, it's
We just have
invaluable.
different expectations. I think some
Yeah, no,
people,
we're all in agreement that we
Yes.
don't want the regional.
Yeah,
That's definitely-
yeah.
I just want you to get an idea, some towns
Yeah.
do that. I don't think that's
Makes me feel
acceptable.
very lucky.
Yes. Okay,
Personal touch.
moving on, old business, nothing.
And then, there's
So,
that one thing in the executive session about the hiring.
okay, So-
We don't really have to go in executive session about it.
so the only thing is that this item in executive session is something that should not be an executive session. Restructuring, the hiring part is okay, but the restructuring should not be. That may have gotten lost in translation when, so.
We're just talking about the hiring.
So we can just talk about the hiring. So if I could trouble everyone to either move the executive session, appreciate it. Is there a motion?